The Zeiss Otus series of lenses have been some of the most sought after sets of optics in the photographic industry since their initial release in 2013 with the 55mm. And because of their fantastic performance and build quality, they have also been popular for video and cinema productions. We've had our 3-lens set in our in-house content creation studio for about a year and a half, and they are our go-to set of lenses for B-roll, behind the scenes and camera testing, as well as anything else we end up shooting. Today, we are looking at the whole Otus family, reflecting and talking about their pros, their cons, and why these lenses are some of our favourites on the market. We've really put these lenses through their paces over the past almost 2 years now, and we thought now, in the new year, would be a great time to reflect on using them, give you an overview of the lenses, and show you some controlled tests, as well as a range of projects that we've shot with them. There are now 4 focal lengths in the Otus set, consisting of a 28mm, 55mm, 85mm, and 100mm. All of which have an f1.4 aperture. This limited set of focal lengths is the one major downside of the Otus series. So if you're wanting to pad out your set, it's really worth exploring the Milvus line of lenses from Zeiss also to expand out the focal lengths missing from the Otus set. The Milvus lenses share similar mechanics and build quality to the Otus lenses, but have compromises in their optical performance and build to reduce costs. But this doesn't mean that they aren't fantastic, because they are. We added the 100mm macro to our set of 3 Otus primes, as it's a fantastic lens that matches with the Otuses really easily when we shoot B-roll. They can also be modded and added to using the same accessories as the Otus lenses, which means that you can make them as consistent as you want to, like the Otus. The Milvus series currently has 11 different lenses in the set, which consist of a 15, 18, 21, 25, 35 f1.4 and f2, 50, 85, 135, and a 50 and 100mm macro. Anyway, back to the Otus lenses. All of these lenses have a 43.3mm image circle, which means they will cover current cinema cameras, sensors like the Alexa LF, Venice, and Monstro. If you want to see how these lenses cover your camera sensor, check out our camera and lens comparison tool via the link in the description. But we will be exploring their image circle properly later on in the video. The lenses feature a 9-bladed iris, which forms really gorgeous bokeh, which again we'll be looking at in a bit. The lenses also feature a lot of glass. The 28 has 16 elements in 13 groups, the 55 has 12 elements in 10 groups, the 85 has 11 elements in 9 groups, and the 100 has 14 elements in 11 groups. This means that they are quite large and do weigh quite a bit. Physically, they all differ slightly, with fairly close weights and lengths. This obviously isn't ideal for cine or video use, but the overall physical design can be fixed a little bit with a few accessories. The focus throws range from 120 to 315 degrees, depending on the focal length, which are all nice and long to get precise focus. Throws are smooth and consistent with hard stops at the ends. Honestly, I've felt cinema lenses with worse mechanics than the ones Zeiss have used here. They really are beautifully crafted. However, one issue with the focus system is the lack of standard gearing for follow focus gears. For this, all you need to do is add a gearing, of which I recommend using Zeiss's, which is really well built. These are a tad on the pricier side, but they are specifically designed for the rubber used on the Otus and Milvus lenses, so they grip very well. The gears are solid, nice and wide, and provide a seamless gear for your follow focus solution. All you need to do to attach them is to check what size your lens needs, add or remove the gum based on if you need it or not, loosen the gear by rotating it clockwise, slide it onto the lens, line it up as straight as you can, and then tighten up the gear. The focus scale features both metric and imperial scales, and a depth of field scale below it. However, if you want a more traditional focus scale, Douglas have a mod that adds this to the lens by replacing the rubber with a custom designed ring, which also has a standard gear built onto it. One of the downsides to these lenses is that you are limited to a Canon EF or Nikon F mount, and there is a large difference between the two. With the EF mount, you can only change your aperture electronically. However, for us, this isn't too much of an issue because our primary cameras have interchangeable mount systems, but this could be a deal breaker for some if you're primarily using PL. F mount isn't really used too much in the filmmaking industry, but the good thing about it is that you can control the aperture using the manual control at the back of the lens, which you can declick out of the box by turning the screw on the back of the mount. However, this makes it feel quite fast and loose, so if you want a smoother feel, you'll need to grease the mechanism, which we would advise having a professional lens service centre do. If the declicked aperture is a big deal for you, but you don't want an F mount, you can get a third-party EF mount from Litax, which we can fit as a service. However, the downside of doing this is that the mount doesn't have an electronic connection, so you get no metadata and you can only control the aperture manually. Also, the focus rotation is reversed on the Nikon version of the lens, which is standard with Nikon lenses. So if your muscle memory is from using Canon lenses, this may take some getting used to if you are pulling manually. However, if you are using a mechanical or electronic follow focus, you should be able to reverse the gear direction depending on your setup. With both choices, there are unfortunately compromises. However, everything has them. It will just come down to what makes the most sense for you. All 4 lenses feature your regular filter threads for screw-on filters when in lightweight configurations. However, another hardware mod that may be worth picking up for the Otus lenses is a set of Duclos step-up rings. These have been designed for both the Milvus and Otus lenses specifically, and will allow you to unify the front diameter of your lenses so you can quickly switch your clip on matte box between each one. You can get 95mm or 114mm for the Otus and 80 or 95mm for the Milvus sets. Once attached, these feel like they are part of the lens, as they are machined from billet aluminium and black anodized to make them look and feel like an extension of the lens's barrel. They are very flush to the lens and could be a really nice option if you use matte boxes on a regular basis. The 95mm step-up rings also feature an 86mm thread for screw-on filters too if you need it. To really complete the set, I would suggest also picking up the Zeiss 95mm front caps, as the clip-on ones that come with the Otus or Milvus will not work with these adapters. Links to everything in the description, but if you have any questions about building up a lens package, please email us and we'll be able to help you. We have shot a huge range of projects with our Otus lenses over the past couple of years. These consisted from pretty much all of the B-roll for this YouTube channel, as well as music videos, behind the scenes, interviews, and more. Here's a little montage of some of our favourite shots. We love these lenses, not only for their fantastic mechanics and build quality, but also because the image they produce is absolutely beautiful. They are optically fantastic lenses that render imagery above their price point. They are very similar in performance to Zeiss's flagship full-frame CD primes, the Supremes, which we also really like. I managed to finally watch The Queen's Gambit on Netflix over the Christmas period and really enjoyed it, especially the cinematography that Stephen Meisler captured with the Red Ranger Monstro and the Supreme lenses. There are a few shots that really take advantage and show what you can do with full-frame cameras and lenses. I really do like the images that these lenses render, and if you haven't watched it, it's seriously worth checking out. However, the Supremes cost more than 5 times what the Otus do, which puts them out of reach for most owner ops, and having the option to get optical performance very close to the Supremes while compromising on the mechanics and design for a fraction of the cost is a pretty awesome option. We also put our 3 Otus primes through our regular testing so we can evaluate them like we normally do for all our lens reviews. All of the tests we shot in our studio here were captured using our Canon C500 Mark II in 5.9K CRM, and we moved our tripod to compensate for the change in focal length. When it comes to the bokeh that these lenses produce, they all feature 9 rounded iris blades, and this means that the shape is pretty consistent across the entire set when stopped down. With the 28mm wide open, you can see elliptical bokeh towards the edges of frame, but it's more circular in the center. The edges of the bokeh are defined with a little bit of color to them. They also have a little bit of texture to them as well. As you stop down, the shape changes, showing off the 9 iris blades, which becomes more pronounced as you stop down. You can also notice a slight halo around the defined edge. The 55mm wide open has elliptical shaped bokeh again towards the edges of frame, but it's more circular in the center, but still not perfect. Again, as you stop down, you can see the aperture forming the shape of the bokeh, and the edges are less defined with less halo around them. You can also see some onion skinning. With the 85mm, shape is cat's eye, wide open even in the center, but it's still better than towards the edges of frame. This is better controlled at f2 and corrected at f2.8. It also features some texture to it, but not as much onion skinning as the 55mm. It also has a defined edge with some halo around it. Overall, the bokeh is really nice, and the fall off you get from in focus to out of focus areas is gorgeous. Overall, flaring performance is very good across the whole set. When stopping down, you can notice some artifacts, but performance is overall incredibly good, especially considering how many elements these lenses have inside of them. When it comes to distortion, all three lenses are very, very well controlled. The 28mm features a very slight barrel distortion, the 55mm has pretty much none, and the 85mm has slight pincushion distortion. However, the distortion across these lenses is almost inconceivable when shooting most subjects, which is awesome. For our resolution and chromatic aberration tests, we shot our chart with the Canon R5 in its stills mode. So what you're seeing here are 45 megapixel stills from the R5 processed in Lightroom, and for the breathing footage, we shot on the R5 also in 8K RAW. When it comes to resolving power, the Otus are some of the best lenses I've ever tested, especially at their price point. All three lenses perform exceptionally well, with the 55 being a touch softer in the corners than in the center. However, as soon as you stop down, this is reduced, and corner to corner sharpness is absolutely fantastic, especially when combined with their CA performance. The Otus series of lenses are claimed to be apochromatic, and looking at our test results, this seems to be the case with some of the best CA performance I have ever seen. The 28mm performs incredibly well in the center of frame, even wide open, gaining a bit more bite as you stop down. In the corners, you can see a tiny bit of spherical aberration, but this is reduced as you stop down. The 55mm is probably the worst performing in this regard out of the three, with the most visible amount of CA in the center of frame wide open. However, as soon as you stop down to f2.8, it becomes incredibly well controlled. In the corners, the 55mm falls off, slightly like the 28, but does feature a little more CA, but again, it's incredibly well controlled. The 85mm is probably the most well controlled out of the bunch. Again, wide open in the center, it's very well controlled, with no real difference when it comes to CA as you stop down. In the corners, it's very similar to the center, with just a touch of spherical aberration, which is pretty much gone at f2.8. Overall, this performance is seriously impressive, especially when combined with their fantastic resolution capabilities. All three of the lenses suffer with quite a lot of breathing. The 85mm looks to suffer from the largest amount, and the 28mm looks to control it the best. However, performance here isn't amazing, but as they have been designed primarily for stills, this is a compromise that has been made, and really is the only compromise optically that these lenses have. So as long as you understand how this could affect your shot, you can try and minimize the distraction that it could cause. When it comes to vignetting, the 28mm suffers the most out of the three, with performance improving as you go towards the longer focal lengths. Performance improves massively as you stop down, and at f4, it's very well controlled throughout the range. As we mentioned earlier, the Otus lenses have a rated image circle of 43.3mm. However, let's see how they perform past full frame. The 28mm covers full frame fine, but with some vignetting. However, you will be able to cover Alexa 65 at 5.1K well, but wide open at infinity, you will have some heavy vignetting. The 55mm covers full frame easily, and Alexa 65 5.1K decently, with some heavy vignetting wide open, but not hard vignette. At f4, vignetting is much better controlled, and it will cover Alexa 65 5.1K well. The 85mm performs very similarly to the 55, so overall this is really good performance, and after doing these tests I put them onto our projector, and the optical performance towards the edges of the image circle is actually very usable, with minimal CA and some spherical aberration, which could result in some nice fall off towards the edges of frame. We absolutely love our Otus set. We're in a very fortunate position where we get to shoot with lots of amazing kit, and the fact that we choose to shoot with the Otus lenses as our primary set of primes above others is because of their beautiful image quality and sturdy build. Yes, it would be nice to have a set of Supremes instead, but at 5 times the cost, it's tough for us to justify. Let us know what you think of the Zeiss Otus lenses in the comments below. If you want to keep up with all our future content, make sure to hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and thank you so much for watching.